Hi, you may not realise it, but using nitrogen fertilisers can really harm your soil, and it's why we don't use them here. What happens when you apply nitrate and ammonium fertilisers to your soil is they rapidly deplete the biology in your soil. And the biology in your soil is really the lifeblood, it's what makes the soil work. And the reason that nitrates are so harmful is because they oxidise the biology, the bacteria, the fungi and the protozoa very rapidly. So your plants are then totally reliant on the feeds that they're given as fertilisers. What the biology actually does is it feeds the nutrients into the plant, feeds the water in, and it also accesses lots of very unavailable fertiliser like phosphates, potassium and the micronutrients much more effectively than the plant's able to do on its own. So they're very dependent on aggressive soil biology. And in recent years, we've moved away from this sort of chemical driven approach towards a much more biological driven approach. And the way that we see the soil now is very much as a living system. Everything that goes on in the soil is driven by biology and carbon. And when you add nitrates, for example, to the soil, what they tend to do is feed the biology with a lot of nitrogen very rapidly, and those bacteria particularly go hunting for carbon. They look for things that they can decay and make into themselves. So that actually reduces the carbon level in the soil. Isn't that amazing that when you add nitrates to the soil, you end up with a lower amount of organic material? And actually your soil stops functioning eventually. So these are the sorts of problems that are now being looked at much more carefully. And what we use here are what are called biostimulants. The biostimulants that we use are things like seaweed. This is a particularly good one. This is a biostimulant that's got all the protein form of nitrogen, which really helps the trees. Because if you give a tree a protein-based nitrogen, it doesn't have to convert that nitrogen in its roots, as it does with nitrates and ammonium. And you immediately build a much more effective immune system in the plant. And the other biostimulant that we use, or soil amendment, is our basalt dust. And basalt dust is particularly good because it has so many components to it. And the main components that are lacking are nitrogen. There's no nitrogen in this basalt rock dust. But what is in there are all the biostimulants, the trace elements, the molybdenum and the manganese and the iron and all the other trace elements, which have now been found to be the missing link really in effective soil biology. Many soils get oxidised so much that all of these trace elements, even when they're present, are no longer available. And it takes a long time to deoxidise or reduce that soil back. The best way to do that is by building organic material. So this helps because it feeds the biology and it allows the biology to rebuild the organic material back into the soil, which gets rid of the oxidation. So the whole thing is a living system, and that's the best way of seeing it.